Hey, I'm Shilpa. I'm the food editor at Bon Appétit, and today we're making my raspberry whipped cream cake. This particular style of cake was inspired by my travels to Japan, where these very light, very airy cakes frosted with cream are popular. It took me quite a few tries to get to this end result, but looking back, I'm really happy with how it turned out. The first thing we're going to do is separate the eggs. Chiffon cakes fall under the category of sponge cakes, and they get their rise predominantly from whipped egg whites. My trick to a perfect meringue is always adding a little bit of cream of tartar. It ensures that the whites never overwhip and they never break. Salt's there for flavor. Any dessert always needs a bit of salt to offset the sweetness and make it taste better. I'll start on a low speed first just to make sure the sugar completely dissolves, and then I'll increase the speed and start whipping till they hold firm peaks. When you lift the whisk out of the bowl, you want the peaks to stand upright. They might be a slight droop, but they should mostly be self-sustaining. We made the meringue. Now I'm going to whisk the egg yolks and sugar together quite vigorously to make sure that the sugar dissolves. You'll know when you whipped it properly when the mixture goes from gritty egg yolk and sugar mixture to something really pale and fluffy, and it looks like ribbons fluttering in the breeze. Now I'm going to add the oil and the water. Chiffon cakes are different from other sponge cakes because they contain a high proportion of oil. It doesn't feel as dry as a sponge cake normally might. And next I'm going to add vanilla because every cake tastes better with a little bit of vanilla extract in it. Just whisk it until everything is well combined and you make sure that the oil is emulsified with the yolks. Now we're going to incorporate the dry ingredients. It's really important to use cake flour here. Bleached cake flour really is going to make your cake super tender, super fluffy. Now I'm going to add the baking powder. This is just a little added insurance. It works with the egg whites to make sure that the cake rises and stays voluminous. Usually I don't sift flour, but for cake flour it's really important because it tends to be clumpy. I'm going to add the rest of the meringue in small batches, gently folding in each time before I add more. If you mix egg whites so much that they completely disappear, you risk over-whipping them and causing them to deflate. When you're folding egg whites into a batter, it's always better to see a few streaks. You don't want huge chunks, but some streaks are totally okay. One of the reasons I had to test this cake so many times is I wanted to be sure they could bake well in standard 8-inch pans that most of us have at home. Chiffon cakes are usually baked in tube pans. This batter looks really good. It's super billowy, it's fluffy, it's light, and it's thick and perfect. The cakes are done. Now I'm going to pull them out and invert them onto a wire rack to cool upside down. If they just cool in the pan without inverting, they tend to collapse. While the cakes are cooling, I'm going to make the raspberry whipped cream. I'm measuring out the sugar, then I'm going to transfer to the food processor along with the freeze-dried raspberries. And I love freeze-dried fruit because you get all the flavor with none of that extra moisture. Now I'm going to sift that raspberry sugar to make sure I remove all of those seeds. The seeds are pretty though. Once all the sugar has been sifted, we're going to add the heavy cream. Again, everything sweet always needs a little bit of salt to balance it out. I'm actually not a vanilla bean advocate. Yeah, I know. They're not doing anything that a really good quality vanilla extract can do. When you're done, you have this amazing, beautiful looking raspberry whipped cream, which tastes like a bunch of raspberries, but you would never be able to get this flavor and texture without those freeze-dried raspberries. I'm just going to reserve some of the whipped cream in a piping bag to finish the cake with. The cake is almost ready to assemble, and now I'm going to make the filling. I am adding a little bit of jam in a bowl, and I'm going to stir it first to loosen up the jam. Then I'm going to fold in fresh raspberries. I wanted to incorporate fresh raspberries because I wanted to reflect back on the original inspiration, which is the Asian cream cakes. And I added raspberry jam to intensify the flavor. This might be a little unconventional. Just think of it as amplifying the flavor of the fruit. Now I have the cooled cakes, and we're going to flip them out of the pans. They've come out so good. They're evenly golden brown. They haven't deflated. The bottoms are even, and they haven't really caved. It looks so good. I'm very proud of myself for this cake. Next, I'm going to spoon all of those glossy, jammy berries onto the whipped cream. I'm going to spread them out, but I'm going to leave a 1-inch border around the edge so they don't spill out when I layer the rest of the cake on top. Frosting a cake with whipped cream can be very daunting because it can break very quickly and you can't work it many times. And it's thanks to the freeze-dried fruit that this frosting in particular is super easy to work with because it's so stable that you can mess with it a lot and you'll still be fine. And now I'm using some of that reserved whipped cream to pipe tiny little baby dollops on top of the cake. The whipped cream needs a little bit of time to set up, so we're going to pop this cake in the fridge. For a final hit of raspberry flavor, I like to crush a few more freeze-dried raspberries on top. Here's the thing, it's super light. It's not too sweet. It's kind of tart, actually, from the raspberries, so it's very refreshing. To me, this cake symbolizes a moment of not giving up, and I'm really glad I didn't. So I hope you try this recipe as well. And let me know how it turns out.